Geometry Dash. One of, if not the best indie game out there. At least in my opinion. There's no doubt about it. Geometry Dash is an amazing game. Although there are some levels that are hated by the community more than others. Now, I'll not be talking about the most hated levels in Geometry Dash. Instead, I'll be talking about the most difficult parts of every single Geometry Dash level. So let's begin with Stereo Madness, the first level of Geometry Dash. Now, because Stereo Madness is level 1 of Geometry Dash, it doesn't actually have a hard part. Instead, it has that triple spike that everyone has died to. So yeah, let's move on to Back on Track, the second level in Geometry Dash. Now, Back on Track is pretty confusing because even though it's the second level of Geometry Dash, many people, including myself, means that it's way easier than Stereo Madness. I think it's because of that triple spike at 63%, and you're right, there's not a single triple spike in Back on Track, and the next time we see a triple spike is in base after base. So Back on Track doesn't really have a hard part, or does it? I'm not really sure. Let me know in the comments if there is. But anyway, let's just get on to Polargeist. If you're unaware what the meaning of Polargeist is, it introduces the yellow orb. Now, Polargeist is pretty confusing to me, and that's because I don't really know what part is harder. Is it the first cube part, or is it the second part? It's definitely not the ship part, because that's easy as fuck. On to Dryout, the Australia level. Dryout is all about the upside down mechanic, so I guess you can tell why I named it Australia level. And the upside down part is also the hardest part of the level. Now remember, the 1.0 levels are Robtop's easiest levels, so that's why it's so hard for me to judge the hardest parts of those levels. This is definitely true for base after base, which in my opinion is definitely the most boring Robtop level. So let's skip to Can't Let Go. I'ma be honest, Can't Let Go is just straight up like the deco is awful, the gameplay is terrible, and what the hell is this? Why did you do this, Robtop? You could have done like anything else. But no, you just made the entire screen black and called it a day. And the hardest part of this level is this god-awful, forsaken piece of shit. Now, Jumper is legendary. It's just legendary. Now, Jumper is not only my favorite 1.0 level, but it's also the last 1.0 level. But it actually has 3 hard parts instead of 1. Oh, and also changed my cube to the Cyclic, or the Dorami, or the Sunix, or the Caramel. There are a lot of people who use that cube. But yeah, let's go through all of the parts individually. The first one is pretty similar to Dryout's part with the confusing gameplay. The second one introduces the upside down ship, which can be confusing to new players. And the final one is a tight corridor with upside down and regular gravity. So now that you've seen that, what's the hardest of them? Well, I'm pretty sure it's the final one. Now, Time Machine has a lot of triple spikes and a lot of hate around it. Now, personally, I completely agree. I mean, does this look fun? I mean, yeah, it isn't actually Time Machine, but it's basically Time Machine, okay? Now, the problem with Time Machine is that it has a lot of balancing, which is good for other levels, but views. It gives a lot of views. So yeah, it's kind of hard ranking this one, but if I had to choose, it would probably be around 70% to 100. But yeah, that's not about difficulty, mostly. But when a person comes far on the Geometry Dash level, you might see that their heartbeat increases rapidly. This is mostly because of dopamine, I think. Okay, I'm not MatPat, I don't have a doctor's degree in this stuff, but if there's something I know a lot about, then it's Cycle. Now, people tend to dislike Cycles, although I'm not really sure why. Maybe it has a lot of triple spikes, but I'm not really sure if that's the reason. Because after the ball introductions, there's no more triple spikes. Now, if you're wondering why I like Cycles so much, number 1, it introduces the ball game mode, which is my favorite game mode. Number 2, the song has a kind of nostalgic feeling, sounding almost depressing in a way. Number 3, the gameplay consists a lot of really fun gimmicks. And number 4, I once uploaded a remix of Cycles to my account. I changed a lot of things and it was originally meant to be a joke, but it's actually a really fun level, so I recommend that you try it if you want to see a sort of different change or approach to Cycles. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that a mod actually commented on the level. So, Nico99, you're now my favorite GD moderator. But yeah, to cut to the chase, the ship part is definitely the hardest part of the level, and it almost feels like a harder part to the one that is in Jumper. So yeah, Cycles is epic, and you definitely have to try it again if you don't like it. Jesus, that was a long one, but we're now on to X-Step. To make things shorter, the second ship part is definitely the hardest part of X-Step. Although in my opinion, X-Step is definitely the easiest insane in the entire game. I guess you can call it insanely easy. Now Clutterfunk is really weird, at least for me. And no, that's not because a third of the level is just... That's actually because the hardest part of the level, at least for the majority of the people, is not actually that hard for me. Now I think all of you can agree on that 70% to 100 is the hardest part of Clutterfunk, but I actually strongly disagree with it. I actually think the ship part leading up to that is the hardest part, but that's probably because I beat a demon before I beat Clutterfunk. But please don't kill me because of this. We have gone to theory of everything, and this will be interesting. I can't sing anymore. Yeah, as you've seen by my beautiful singing tone, theory of everything is going to be kinda interesting. Now, even though I showed the beginning in the intro of this video, the first Q part is way easier than the other part. But for some people, difficulty actually comes at other places. For example, people with carpal tunnel might suck at 44%, people with hard ship control might suck at 54%, people with bad memory might suck at 69%, but I personally suck at 80%. But there just might be people who suck at the last ball part. Next up is Electroman Adventures.
The Electroman is very busy.
Electroman Adventures might be the most liked insane in the game, and it totally deserves that spot. I looked around at the level and tried to find something that people didn't like, which might be kinda weird, and the only annoying thing I found is probably the annoying transitions. But let's get back on track and cover the hardest part of the level, which is surely the last 30% of the level. But hey, Electroman Adventures is pretty easy, and some people actually have said that it's the easiest insane in the game, but I think the next step is way easier. Next up is the first main level demon in Geometry Dash, Clubstep. I used to crap a lot on Clubstep, but now that I've beaten a few demons myself, I actually think that it's a really good level. It has a lot of trolls, but it's fun because it's a demon level. Although it does have a few problems, like there are some parts that are more unbalanced than others, for example the UFO and ship part, but it's fun and doesn't really get too mean. Another level that doesn't get too mean is Electrodynamic. Everyone can agree on that the UFO part is definitely the hardest part of the level, but it's not as hard as you might see. It might seem a little bit tricky the first time around, but eventually it becomes muscle memory. Can't say the same for the second part. Hexagon Force introduces the duel, slopes, a new background, a new art style, and a new song. The level plays around with the mechanics quite nicely, although the jump at 40% definitely has to be fixed. You might like it, but I personally don't. Blast processing is up next. Many people call 1.9 the golden age of Geometry Dash. It was simple and pure, and many people liked the simplicity. The level introduced the Wave, which is probably the most well-known game mode of Geometry Dash, and like Hexagon Force, it mostly stays the same difficulty throughout the level, except for the dual Wave. Theory of Everything 2, or TOE2, is the second main level demon in Geometry Dash. Some people view it as a harder version than the original Theory of Everything, although it does have pretty unique gameplay. Some parts are a little bit harder than others, like 30%, 57%, And especially 80%, which is the hardest part of the level. The Ruptup demons are really good, and they definitely deserve their fame. Although I don't think that Geometrical Dominator deserves its reputation. Some people may not like it because of the gimmicks and how chaotic 2.0 was, but I personally view it as one of my favorite levels. It does a lot of stuff right, it does a lot of stuff wrong, but I can forgive it because it gets really fun at 40%. Well, except for the memory part at 70%. That sucks. In my previous version of this video, I didn't even count Deadlocked. But that's because I didn't have 30 secret coins. Now Deadlocked is brutal, with many hard parts. But to make a long story short, the final ship part is hard as balls. And we're finally on to Finger Dash. Now, unlike the other levels on this list, Finger Dash actually has the same difficulty throughout this entire level, with no difficulty changes at all. Now I'm saying this because, well, I beat this level first try while recording the audio, so I guess you can pretty much say that this level is super easy. But guess what? The video is done. Now, some of my opinions might be a little bit weird, but I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, bye.